Hey guys, and welcome to a battle featuring Consul of Rome, leading an incredibly cool looking DAWI force up against Pacta and his Norscan hordes. Should be a really fun game. This is an interesting matchup overall, and I think both forces have some pretty cool and unique tools to deal with each other. But first and foremost, let's go through Consul of Rome's DAWI build, and it is going to be a fire build, my favourite type of DAWI build. Then the front line, we are going to have a mixture of miners with blasting charges, as well as ironbreakers, including the Regiment of Renowned Norgremlins ironbreakers, one of the most bad to the bones units in the game, with a very cool gold and red colour scheme. These guys have blasting charges, immune to psychology, and a whopping 125 armour with 82 melee defense. They are a brick wall which will not move. We also have Warriors of Dragonfire Pass in the centre pocket, which keeps with the fire theme as well. They, of course, do have fire attacks with their flaming axes. In the centre pocket, it looks like we do have triple Iron Drakes, which, of course, once again, do belch fire with their mighty flamethrowers, good at clearing out Norscan chaff. However, they will struggle up against larger entities, but still, they do a really nice burn effect, which is -8 leadership. We have Ekran Miners as well in the centre pocket. Nice to see those guys used in a secondary line position to ensure they can get rid of all their blasting charges. We also have a flame cannon in the back, protected by a unit of miners. Once again, flame cannons are fantastic at clearing through chaff and coming with the burn effect as well. So a really cool, awesome kind of core to the build here, really looking to clear through Norscan infantry. We have Ungrim Iron Fist leading the charge. The Unbreakable Slayer Lord himself has sent forward 2 gyrocopters, one of which is a Brimstone gun, which is going to be one of the only real anti-large tools, apart from Ungrim himself, to deal with the Norscans here. So that could be a bit of concern, but looking at the Norscan build, there's not too many large threats. Over on the right-hand flank, we do have 2 Marauder Chariots. And then for the main battle line, we have a nice mixture of Marauder Champions of great weapons, some elite of the elite here. Also going to be rolling in with more cheap and cheerful Marauders, kind of dotted in throughout. It looks like we have the Regiment of Renowned Icehorns as well. So a nice mixture of troops all round, a decent cavalry contingent as well, as Marauder Horsemen do dart all the way along the back line. And we, looks like for the leadership corps, have a Familiar Belfiend with Shadows, coming in with Scroll of Shielding, of course, Pendulum and Enfeebling Foe. Pendulum going to be very potent here. We also have Wolfric the Wanderer on top of his mighty chariot, and this is one of the matchups where you don't want him on a mammoth. It's possible, but a chariot is also a fantastic option. He's coming in with Hunter of Champions, Fight or Die, as well as Seathang. Up in the sky, we have a Feral Manticore who's going to be going fisticuffs, or trying to at least, with the gyrocopters if it can get them within its clutches. We have some Norscan Warhounds in the distance as well to round out the build. Without further ado, let's hop in here. So 2 very interesting builds. I feel like the Dwarfs are probably going to struggle with the large threats, such as the Manticore and Chariot, but at the same time, this poor chaff for the Norscans is probably going to get roasted very quickly. Gyrocopters do beam forward here, just to try and get a few shots arcing in, and that Brimstone gun will do horrific damage as well to Wolfric if he sits still. Flame Cannon does unleash some shots, burning some of these pesky horsemen straight out of the gate with some rather accurate DAWI engineering. Second volley does come in, and a little bit less accurate at this time, but of course it's Marauder Horsemen pretty hard to hit when they are darting back and forth. They're being used very effectively right now to kind of push back the gyrocopters, keep them off any of those key targets. Looks like we're going to have a huge flank overload on this right-hand side as the double chariots do push in. And it looks like the forces of Norsca overall going to be trying to wrap around the right-hand flank. However, the Dwarfs, let's seem a little bit privy to this, are going to be falling back and rearranging their forces as well, allowing and buying more time for gyrocopters to shoot in. As you can see, the standard one does have these glorious steam cannons, which does pretty good crowd control, clearing off some of the Marauders, as the flame cannon once again misses the Marauder Horsemen, as they kind of weave back and forth. Really good micro so far by the forces of the Norscans to avoid those, although just as I say that, one big flame ball does come in and take down a Marauder Horseman. Oh, a massive pendulum comes down the gate, tearing through the Norgrim's Ironbreakers as well as the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. I believe there's an overcast as well, because of the miscast which went down on the Famir, doing some pretty huge damage, but the Norgrim Ironbreakers, they'll take that in stride. Nothing like a few dead DAWI to inspire the rest for vengeance and glory. Flame Cannon has switched its target now to after the Marauder Champions, which is a really good target and going to be some great value if those shots do connect. Unfortunately, it does seem to be firing at the side of the formation, which does happen a lot with artillery. I'm not sure the kind of reasoning behind that or the mechanics, but now it's clobbering in the middle, doing some pretty decent damage. Chariots do go for a general assault straight through the front here. Looks like they're trying to get the Dwarfs to commit to their blasting charges, but lovely micro by Consul Rome's has clearly turned those off, waiting for better targets. Wants to use those up against on the Marauder champions and the like. And the Chariots have paid the price here, being burnt and kind of hammered down by angry Norgrims here. Miners on the left-hand side, though, have been caught without using their charges, which is, I suppose, the gift and curse of turning off that auto-fire. On the other flank here, Icehorn Marauders are going to be pushing through the Fire and Flames as they take a few volleys to the face, but still going to be getting in there and wrecking some miners. And in the back line, the Chariots have managed to overrun and push into the back line. Wulfric has taken an absolute hammering here, though, and so are the Chariots. These Iron Drakes are doing pretty decent damage, despite the fact they're anti-infantry rather than the Trollhammer Torpedo version, which is anti-large. But I suppose the Brimstone Gun as well is firing in and doing some really awesome damage against the Chariots. Mixing with the burn effect is going to force them off here. The other Dwarf forces are kind of slowly pushing their way to this left-hand side, realising the main engagement isn't really going to happen anymore, as the Norscans did overcommit on that side. So these miners and Ironbreakers really need to kind of start shuffling this way and form a secondary battle line to protect these Iron Drakes, as they're currently incredibly dangerously close to the front lines here. Have a hail, a storm of fire is coming in here, mixed in with bullets, and doing pretty decent work overall. Iron Drake's only 9 kills, but they're kind of more of a HP killing unit rather than model count. There's a huge wall of fire floods in here, drowning those Marauders in glorious flames. Warriors Dragonfire Pass are going to pop in here as well, swinging their flaming axes. Certainly going to be an easy match, Marauders, for them. These manlings know nothing of the Great Wars or the Dwarfs, and I'm sure the Warriors Dragonfire Pass are soon to correct them of their errors of arrogantly charging in there. Marauder champions taking flame cannons to the face isn't going to be a good day to them, and Norgrim Ironbreakers as well, unleashing some really decent blasting charges. Looks like they may have taken a second pendulum here as well from the carvings in the ground here, but still up to 92 kills regardless, doing some fantastic work. Flame Cannon nearly out of ammunition at this point. It has wasted a few shots trying to hit Horsemen, but overall it's done pretty decent damage to them and along the front line. And Dwarfs seem relatively comfortable at the moment, although there is some returning features like these Marauders and Marauder Chariots who can cause real problems to the Dwarfs here in the late game. Ungrim is swinging around his two-handed Axe of Dargo here, slaying some Marauder champions and forcing them back, just as the Ironbreakers do rally to his cause. There is a couple of miners over on the right-hand side, though, who need to be pulled back to help protect the Iron Drakes where possible, as they're kind of just dawdling over on this right-hand side. But you can't blame Consul at Rome too much. He has a crazy amount of micro here, as the Marauders do push in, as Pacta pressures from all angles. Wolf the Rondra is going to be running over the Warriors Dragonfire Pass, and it looks like they're just about spent here. Marauder champions will be able to beat them down, although there is some fire support as well, raining down hell on the Marauder Horsemen. Looks like they might actually be able to break a couple of units, force them away from the battle, at least for a little while. Over here in the front lines, or what used to be the front lines I suppose, Iron Drakes have been isolated here by a mixture of chariots as well as characters, which isn't going to serve them too well. However, there is fire support coming in by the Iron Drakes on the right hand side, but Wulfric is simply going to chuckle and kind of shake off their little burns and watch his chariots just roll through the poor Iron Drakes there. And that's where these miners could really come in handy. It looks like they are now moving to the front line. They could have worked as a bit more of an early buffer here. Flame Cannon is completely out of ammunition, and if you ever get a Flame Cannon and manage to use all its ammunition, you know it's had a good game, up to 115 kills, doing some really impressive stuff. And Ungrim, still incredibly healthy at this point, could be a big problem here for the forces of Norsca. Up in the skies, the Brimstone Gun, it looks like it's trying to focus down Wulfric, which is a decent shout here, as it can still do some pretty decent damage, but it is down to, what, 1 volley left? Yeah, 1 volley left. The classic Gyrocopter as well is running incredibly low. Now, the minor deep line reinforcements, we'll call them here, tactical reserve, have come in and managed to use their blasting charges on the Marauder Horsemen, doing some pretty decent work. Secondary unit as well, it's going to throw over the top and clobber these Marauder champions and Marauder Horsemen quite comfortably. So coming into the late game with full blasting charges, certainly no joke, can help them to clear up some of the remaining chaff as chariots continue to bounce around. Wulfric the Wanderer is getting very low health-wise. 960 is certainly nothing too scary, especially with Ungrim on the field who can take that down in a couple of good chops. Ekrund and Miners still have a lot of blasting charges left, but only 15 of them, as a huge boat comes down the line, tearing through Iron Drakes as well as Miners there, doing some really fantastic damage. There's still 51 Iron Breakers here though, which is pretty scary stuff. for kind of the Norscan forces to deal with, although some great weapons are going to be moving in here. Manticore does dive down on top of some Iron Drakes, trying to finish these pesky flamethrower wielding maniacs off the field, and it's certainly a good idea. That burns effect is really potent in the late game, especially against a force like Norsca, who don't have the best leadership. If Wulfric can be dealt with and hunted down by the Dwarfs, that burn could cause mass routes in the late game. The Flame Cannon crew is charging into glorious combat up against Marauders, making the Marauders waver as well. But the Flame Cannon crew does indeed retreat, but you can't blame them. They fought pretty strong here. And some Iron Drakes trying to give them a little bit of overwatch fire there, and now a little isolated. Manticore is still very healthy. Wulfric, though, is struggling massively to deal with some of the remaining miners, who could actually throw their blasting charges on top of him if they went to guard mode and just obliterated him there. Maybe it'd be enough to do with him. They actually do come in with some blasting charges, but he manages to cackle and escape there. Manticore does dart in here to help clear up the remaining troops here, which is basically just miners at this point. And the Gyrocopters as well are out of ammunition, so the Dwarfs certainly got most of their value from their war machines. The Iron Drakes still have decent ammunition though, so if they could have been kept firing a little bit longer, it would have been a bit better for them, but there's so many chariots on the field, it's quite hard for them to pull off. Balanced power for the first time in the game is in favour of Norsca here, but Ungrim is going to be a massive pain to deal with. I mean, he has 3,000 health, he's unbreakable, he has 45 Royal Ironbreakers guarding him, and not too much to deal with them either, apart from, I suppose, the mass chariot play, which is always a bit of a bane for the Dwarf forces. Lovely play here as the Gyrocopter Brimstone Gun is going to be chucking in, sacrificing itself to allow the Iron Drakes to get 1 or 2 more volleys off, pushing back these Marauders with great weapons and finishing them off for good. Champion's now taking some flames to the face, but it looks like we do have some javelins being thrown in here by the Marauder Horsemen. Only 9 kills on those bad boys, but still doing damage in the late game, certainly going to add up and help chip away at that leadership of the Dwarfs. Unfortunately, Ungrim has separated himself from the Ironbreakers here. Looks like he wanted to finish off some great weapons, but they're running from the field, and the Dwarfs at this point really need to stack on top of each other and just hold the line, and basically, just come at me, bro, type force. Get together, and it's like, yep, throw what you want at me. Every time you come in here, we're going to kill a couple more models, and basically kind of try and drag out the enemy here. Ungrim is now going to be chasing after Wulfric, and Wulfric is danger low here, and he's going to just about manage to chuckle and laugh away there, but Famir Belfiend may not be so lucky. Scroll of Children has been popped down on him, however, to keep him alive and active. Norscans now using their added mobility to bounce around between combats, running over miners with blasting charges here, and this is a problem for Dwarfs as well in the late game. If as the battle's been going on, you're trying to chase down troops, you get a little bit spread out and then kind of picked off here, as you're a bit slow to kind of react to save your own troops. Marauder Horsemen are slowly getting worn down here, as miners are lifting their mighty picks and whacking them into these horses, but it looks like Wulfric is going to be just quite happily rolling through. The Manticore is going to try and assassinate Ungrim here, which is a good idea. However, if Ungrim does decide to turn around and hit him back, Manticores are relatively squishy as far as giant beasts go, and Ungrim hits disgustingly hard, so we'll have to see. It looks like he does get a big club on that Manticore. He does have fight or die popped on him for now, but a massive chunk of health is torn off of him there. He probably loses a horn and half of his face to a mighty axe throw, or axe swing, by Ungrim. And now the Iron Drakes are coming in with that burns effect, helping break the Feral Manticore. And this is what I'm talking about, these guys in the late game. Simply 4 models, they're not going to do much damage, but they'll still apply that negative to leadership. Manticore is forced off, but should be able to rally here up in the skies, as the Marauder Horsemen are trying desperately to get away from these Iron Breakers. They're actually getting stuck in here by the mass of some of the miners and slowly dragged down off their horses. Norscan Warhounds are going to be jumping into the fight as well. They're going to struggle to get through the thick armour of the Dwarves, but through sheer number, they may be able to break these miners here and chase them off the field. We do have a late bombing run coming in by a lone Gyrocopter. Yeah, doing some damage in the late game. And it's kind of wavering though, so I don't think it's going to be able to do much in combat. And at this point, it's pretty much the Ironbreakers and Ungrim left, as the Horse Masters once again come in here for a nice cycle charge. Ironbreakers desperately trying to hold the line, not really taking too much damage, but a lovely Sea Fang comes arcing through there, doing huge work, both to friend and foe, but at this point it's kind of worth it with the troops that are left. Hunter Champions is popped on Ungrim, and this is going to be the bane of his existence, I think. Hunter Champions lowers his armor to 60 and his melee defense down to 0, so everything is going to be able to clobber him, and as you can see, a very angry Manticore flying in is going to cause him all sorts of problems. Bunch of champions wasn't popped here. He could probably solo this at this point, I think. There's only 1 or 2 hits to kind of finish off each of these remaining characters. And it has worn off now, so Ungrim is holding the line desperately, trying to finish off Wulfric is his main target here. But Wulfric simply, down to 200 health, does manage to pull out there and pop a fight or die, boosting up the effectiveness of these units. And it looks like the Slayer King may fulfill his Slayer oath there as he gets stabbed in the back by the Manticore, despite the fact the Norscan forces are indeed wavering there. What a game, and crazy stuff. Very well played to Consular Rome and Pacta there. But before we get into the builds, I have so much praise to say for both these builds. If you did enjoy, guys, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already for more Total War Warhammer content. We should be doing a stream tomorrow. We have a little clan war planned, which should hopefully go through. And we're going to be starting up Death Before Dishonor tournament soon as well. I'm just kind of waiting for the ever-chosen qualifiers to get finished first. But anyway, well played to both of these lads, 2 OGs of the channel, and a massive shout out to Consular Rome for sending this in via my Discord. And an awesome fire DAWI build. Now, I did a build similar to this a few months ago and had great success. I didn't, however, take the Iron Breakers, which I think as a unit I need to use far more often. They're very expensive and don't do too much damage output, but they are the ultimate roadblock, and they're just so badass, these dwarfs in giant thick armor, holding the line and grumbling as they do so. And they've got pretty decent kills across the board. Gyrocopter Brimstone Gun as well was a bit of an secret MVP there. Only 26 kills, but massive damage across the board on top of Wulfric, and really good stuff. The Blasting Chargers, good conservation at the start of the game, not kind of using them on the chariots and the like, but a few of them didn't get to use all of their chargers, which was a little unfortunate. Andrakes did a pretty decent job in the Flame Cannon, 136 kills, didn't get shut down in time, and did some massive damage. As for Pacta's forces, really solid build. I love the use of Marauder champions here, coming in a little bit more elite as well. But his real MVP there was Wulfric, 175 kills, huge boats attacks, as well as some of the pendulums from the Thamir Belfiend really helped to grind down the dwarf forces. Anyway, guys, until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.